She is who she is. What matters is she. She chases the stars, spinning tales of her journey. She is here to make history, her story. Fearless, free-spirited. She is the spirit of change. She remains the Taj.
कुछ मेरी जान मेरे साथ ही चलना है तुझे, अगर अब तक तेरी तारीफ में जानी ही नहीं. Why should there be a special day for Women's Day? Why should every day be Women's Day? Every day is not Women's Day in a patriarchal society. तुझ में शोले भी हैं, बस अश्क खुशानी ही नहीं. अपनी तारीफ का उन्मान बदलना है तुझे. It takes a long time to come where we have in order to make it to society. कुछ मेरी जान मेरे साथ ही चलना है तुझे.
This company has had 120 agents. This hotel where we are sitting was opened in 1903, so this is almost getting to 120 years of operation. It is very difficult, but not impossible, to keep finding new things. Having said that, why should we give up something that is good and has been a part of our journey? So 20 years ago, if the platform we were provided with, the commitment we were provided with, about she is the Taj, led to the campaign that she remains the Taj. And I think that is what signifies this book, the Indian Hotels Company, as it was named by our founder, popularly known as the Taj Group. As customers, we are going to roll out a series of good things, a series of incentives, a series of privileges over the next 4-6 weeks by tweaking the word founded by the French voyage with a W to signify what we are trying to achieve here this evening. And that may be special amenities, that may be special treatments, that may be special upgrades, that may be special journeys, that may be not staycations, maybe vacations, and a lot of that is good with it as customers. Because that is the heart of our business, that's the soul of our business. Our employees, we have been doing a lot of great things with our employees, and we will continue to do those. Whether it is extended maternity leave or providing fresh for children, even taking that to the next level. Finally comes the community, and our company has been forefront. Very happy to see some of the pillars who have seated right in the front, actually, for having supported the Banaras Sari Week. All the uniforms that you see here is providing that kind of support, or of late also with some of our partners like AB, the microbrewery to encourage women to get into the workforce and basically employing them to create livelihoods and support the community. So I think all in all, celebrating this momentous occasion this evening, under the true spirit of what we define as Taj.
Mr. Chakwa, thank you for hosting us. It's always a fantastic feeling when we come to this Taj. I mean, such an iconic building. It's just unparalleled every time when we come and enjoy the experiences. So thank you for hosting me now. I'm a professional television actor and I ask questions for a living. To put it very simple in Hindi, मैं पेट के लिए सवाल पूछता हूँ. That's what I do for a job. But it's not the questions, it is the answers. And sometimes the answers to my questions are stories, opinions, experiences, and inspiration. And that is what we plan to discuss, ideate, deliberate, and discuss. Like Shavana ji said, we've come a long way in terms of empowering Indian women, but we still have another long way to go. So what can be done to change the fabric of the society? And I will use the liberty of my anchor chair to start with my dear friend Radhika. Radhika, congratulations first, doing the family race, God bless. I'm going to start with this image which all of us have, and I'm sure everybody has here, that financial industry, the industry which you represent, is dominated by men. It's an industry where women, in a sense, are not the real decision makers. I'm using a very harsh word to describe what the image is. But the reason why image is like this is because there is a reality and there are facts and numbers which are lacking. Am I right?
Yes and no. And I'll tell you, if you go back to our history, we all have stories of our nannies and daddies and mothers being not just great housekeepers, but actually fantastic budget keepers. I come from the Himalayan Aisha Gupta, which was called Gupta. So it was the money that my mom it would save after all the expenses, and India saw that that was a reasonably large quantum during the monetization. So historically, Indian women have been good savers, and we've been able to build homes and manage everyone's needs in very limited amounts, and not talked about cost budgeting and Excel spreadsheets and how we are Warren Buffett. So the inherent skills of being resourceful and saving money are actually all there in Indian women. What has not happened is perhaps that translation from saving to managing money, because perhaps managing money has been perceived as a very alpha male profession. Since you're my friend, I'd also say the media industry doesn't do us any favors. Because when you think of the person managing money, you have money in movies like Wolf of Wall Street that project managing money as a very alpha male guy who's surrounded by beautiful women and he's very aggressive. I can tell you from the financial services industry, most of us are not like that, men including. We are genuinely very quiet, responsible people who know that there is a burden of managing other people's money. So, you don't need a great alpha male skill set to be a successful finance professional. And I tell every young woman who writes to me about building a career in finance that you need to be hardworking, you need to be committed, you need to be analytical, and we have all the skill sets to do it. I should also say one thing that professionally, if you look at corporate India, the one sector that has led in women's leadership is financial services. And I know people will give mixed examples, but at some point a large number of our financial institutions were run by women. So if there is one sector in this country that has been a beacon of change for women's leadership, it is financial services. Long way to go. And the last thing I would say is what gives me optimism is that it is changing. My mother is a highly educated, she went to St. Stephen's, Indian woman of that generation who gave up a seat at IIM Ahmedabad to marry my father who was a diplomat. She told my generation, whatever you do, however nice the man you marry is, never do that. Okay. And I hope if I have a daughter, she will follow in those footsteps. But when I see young women of today, 18, 20, they're not only asking questions about careers, they're asking questions about how to manage money. And the most common question they ask is also, what's the right kind of partner I should have so I can fulfill all my dreams? So I'm very optimistic.
Ravanaji, in your remarks, you said we've come a long, long way. We should be proud of where we are. But we have a long, long way to go. And I'm just hoping. A very simple question. What advice would you give to young men and fathers that what they need to be the change agent? आज सब करते हैं करता है. तो ऐसे ही बताइए जो कर सकते हैं.
Maybe that is such an important question because you preempted what I was going to say. Is that all along we have been talking about empowerment of women and women demanding their rights and women coming into their own. But in society that change cannot happen unless there is a definitive change in the way the male, particularly the son and the husband, the father, all these people change. Now, I think one of the most important things, our son Farhan runs an organization called One, where what he's talking about is redefining masculinity. Why is masculinity about lifting muscles and power and strength? Why isn't it also about consideration, about empathy, about being really sensitive? I think that's a very important thing he's doing because he's going into colleges and schools and talking to boys. So I think until and unless men bring about that change in them, society is constantly going to be unbalanced. So it's not enough to tell the woman, you stand up and demand your rights. It's also to tell the men, change the way in which you're thinking. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the way we protect our girls walking on the streets or going into a club wearing a certain kind of dress. And the young children today say that why can't I wear what I want to wear? Why don't you put men on a leash? Why is it we? You see, so this change has to come, and I think this change will come only if we talk about a society in which the man and the woman, the yin and the yang, is perfectly balanced in every person. Only then can we become a healthy society, I think.
Mr. Chapal, the Taj group of hotels in Dhaka, 8 lakh employees, over 2 lakh women employees. What is your commitment in terms of making sure that this entire equality gap is narrowed? Let's talk about Indian hotels first.
So currently our workforce is 18%, and I forgot to mention it earlier, so it's good you asked this question, is we are committing that over the next 5 years, we will increase it by 50% to go to 25% of our total workforce. It might sound low, but that is just the reality of this business because there is a lot of work that happens behind the scenes. It's one of those industries which works 365 days a year and 24 hours a day. And it's very difficult to balance work and life and families. And also, in order to keep it simple, we have committed to skill 100,000 people over the next 5 years, and we said 25% of that will also be within at different levels, whether it's apprentice level, management trainees, skilling of, for providing livelihoods with the help of the platform of CII. So we have committed to that, and actually we already started doing it. So this year, the batch of management trainees is 70% women. It's not even 50, so it's very, very good news. I recently interacted with them. So it's positive and it's improving, and it's a step in the right direction.
Let me just refer to a Deloitte report that talks about, if you look at the number of women in the board, the number is at 17.1. That's the Deloitte. Even though the mandatory number is slightly higher, not as much higher. Do you see that changing? And why is that not changing?
Can I tell you a statistic? Do you know that post-COVID, you have only 7% women workforce participation in urban India? Do you know that before COVID as well, 22%, so my mother's generation, right, had more women in the workforce than my generation does. That is the harsh reality. Now imagine if and you see this, I run a platform called Baby Chakra that's been acquired by the group. I joined the group as co-founder, but I've had the privilege, and I continue to have the privilege of working with more than 25 million mothers, right? The biggest, so there are two places where this sort of, happens, like this complete brain drain, if you will, happens, right? One is, number one, women are not even taught to have aspiration in many cases, right? So women will go like engineering colleges. How many women are there in engineering colleges in India, right? So you don't see women entering STEM in a meaningful way. And the second place is, of course, motherhood and maternity, right? Where people take a step back, women take a step back to go forward on their personal life, but a step back on their professional life, and then they don't get the environment that's enabling enough for them to come back and build their career well. So I think the board is the most rarefied form, right? I mean, even middle management, You're looking at even like young women leaders who don't exist because they're told to take a step back or they don't have the enabling infrastructure, which I mean, of course, maybe we heard about the Taj's initiatives, but you just don't have that. So I think the board is the next level. I think it's great that we have policy regulation that basically insists on it, but when we start seeing women really sort of percolate and win through middle management and cross the threshold of maternity into getting into senior leadership roles and continuing their journey of success and their trajectory, I think that's when we start seeing real change happening at the board level.
Radhika, before I go to Mr. Chagwal, this whole issue of the decision making also is a function of financial independence. You've spoken about it again and again, again and again. How come a basic realization is not coming at grassroots level? At a very basic financial independence, a lot needs to be done, and a lot has been done, but we still have, like Shabana said, long, long, long way.
Radhika, before you answer that question, because you said at the grassroots, I run an NGO called Midtown Welfare Society, and we have, apart from educating the women and all that, we've given them skills, and now they are embroidering, they're doing chicken sari, which Manish Kanakar now followed to Bollywood and also to Hollywood. So they're suddenly earning a lot of money. What it is doing is for the first time in their lives, it's changing them so that they can participate in the decision-making process. What that is doing is bringing a transformation in the status quo within the family. So from being looked upon as liability, she's now being looked upon as asset, and there is absolutely evidence to that. So the grassroots also is changing, and you can of course speak that.
It's fabulous. By the way, Shabana mentioned this beautiful point about eventually. We once put out an ad, funds put out ads about, you should invest. If you start with 1,000 rupees, you'll get a lakh rupees, and all this basic stuff. Usually all those ads have meant, they use the word he. I think just unconsciously, someone in our marketing team put a picture of a little girl there instead of a little boy there. We got so many reactions to that. And even the language by
Media reactions again.
what?
Media reactions.
No, this time was actually that's a nice stuff from the media. But I'll say that subconscious imagery is so powerful. I mean, as far as financial independence, look, people realize India is subconsciously very behind men and women in financial independence. So, what will happen, women's experience will mirror broad national and social experience. So, on all financial parameters, we are well behind the rest of the world. And you mentioned grassroots, and it was wonderful to hear what Shabana said. I actually don't think the financial independence problem is different in grassroots and in the highest echelons of societies. I do hundreds of seminars with women, and they can be women of rich business families, and they can be women which are less privileged. I have got women in business families, and I ask them, how many of you even know how much money the family has, how you are investing? 90% of them say no. So this is not a problem at our grassroots. This is a subconscious problem in all parts of society. I think two things. One, women think they can outsource this. And ये काम किसको करना है? कोई husband कर लेगा, कोई father कर लेगा, etc., etc. Secondly, I think there's a belief कि ये मेरे वस्ता काम नहीं है. This is complicated. Both of those narratives need to change. A heartening thing is a lot more women are now present in fintech. A lot more platforms are catering to women as a financial consumer. So they are pushing women into the decision-making process. It's very, very early days. But I would say this is not a grassroots problem. This starts from top to bottom. The pyramid of India.
I'd like to share a story. It's slightly unfortunate that I lost my dad to COVID last year. And the realization which dawned on me was that when Papa passed away, my mother's awareness of how many bank accounts my father had, and I used to always think that he would be pretty much sorted because his son is managing a business channel. It just was not there. The LIC policy, the bank account, the checkbooks. So when you just look back and you said, I'm speaking of my personal experience that I've failed to change things at my house and how sad it is. So it's a code which we've taken easy now in terms of women empowerment. But that's the way it is.
I'll tell you one thing, that Forget this. A lot of women are taking on liabilities. They are on boards of companies that are fraudulent. They have loans in their names and they want to, and that's fine. Not joking. Just hearing that experience. Whoever tells you that life is uncertain, everyone should do that quarterly spreadsheet exercise. My mother, who never got involved in the family finances, now insists that she does that with my father to know where the family wealth is because we see it, they work so hard to save that money. The minimum we can do is have awareness of what it is.
I'm going to ask you a different question. You are a lovely figure. As a mother, what are the three things you're doing? Not about stock markets right now.
No, we'll start on that free. Just sort of follow up, my husband's actually sitting in the audience. He's hiding behind somewhere. But, Radhika, you talked about the experience you had when you were expecting. I had a very similar reaction. It's so interesting to hear it. I mean, I would like to think that both of us have the privilege, have had the fortune of having certain access in life. But when I found out, I literally remember coming out of the loop and telling somebody, we're pregnant. And the first reaction I had from he was like, oh, amazing, blah, blah, blah. My first reaction was, what's going to happen to my company? I'm in the middle of this important fundraise. What am I going to tell the board? That was my first reaction. And, I see Sandeep nodding his head, but for me, the first 15 minutes of just internalizing this was about what is going to happen to my aspiration, right? What shall I tell my team? So it's interesting to say that, Radhika, because I think it's still not normalized for us as women with ambition to also embrace the fact that we be women with ambition and women with family, right? It's still not the normal, and this, by the way, comes from my mother has been, a very ambitious woman, has been very successful. So I've seen these role models in my life, right? But it's still
supported you.
Family's more than supportive. They have no option actually in some ways. But they've been more than supportive. But now coming to your specific question, Arya, who's 3 years old, we've been working from home, right, the last couple of 2 years. And Sandeep takes one room, I take one room. And Arya knows that she can go and knock on Sandeep's door, my husband's door, because Papa को disturb कर सकते हैं, Mama is in office. So she doesn't come and disturb me. I think it's about, that's one. The second thing I think is that, when she knows, so she doesn't know where my husband works, right? My husband, we met at McKinsey, he's now in Sunshine, she doesn't know where he works. But if you ask her, where does Mama work? Maybe Chakra. Right? So I think these are the things that, and when we have fun, I do a lot of meetings at home. I request my team to come if I'm pretty tied up with back calls or whatever else. I think the reality of it is, the more we make this whole sort of ambition in me being a normal thing to have as a woman, I really hope I can pass it on to Arya, right? Because when she grows up, she should embrace her ambitions. She shouldn't shy away from them. She should know that it's okay to be ambitious and to also want to have a really happy family life. And I'm really hopeful that if and when and whether she decides to ever have a family and become pregnant, she doesn't walk out the door and say, oh my God, what's going to happen to me, right? Because that for me was that one moment of realization where I was like, did I just have that reaction?
Okay. We almost we won't be extending our appointment if I keep on asking more questions. So I'm just going to keep opening for the floor. So I necessarily need to wrap now. It's been so wonderful interacting with everybody here. Let's do a hands together for this. Thank you.